You are now locked into the Red and Blue Rivalry podcast, the podcast where we talk all things San Francisco 49ers and Dallas Cowboys.
My name is Eric Hernandez, and I'm repping the faithful.
And I am Phillip Enriquez, repping it for America's team. It's week 7 in the 2020 NFL season, man, and, we haven't really got together and really gave a state of the union for our two teams, man. So there's no time better than now than to just shoot the shit, talk about, what we've seen thus far for our teams.
I mean, damn, 2020, it doesn't end, man. It really doesn't. It's like you walk in here with so much hope and so much, for the Niners, you've got everybody's coming back, the revenge tour. They're going to go back to the Super Bowl. That's the goal. I'm sure for Dallas, you're looking at that offense and thinking this team's going to be even better. The clapper's gone. And
reasons for optimism.
Yes. And you look at it now and I think the one word that fits both our teams is just injuries.
Yeah. Both of our teams are riddled with injuries. I don't think it's fair to really judge these teams by what their off-season expectations were just because they've been not just hit with injuries, but ravaged with injuries. Yeah. Honestly, the Cowboys and the Niners are probably, top 4 in injuries?
Oh, yeah, and especially IR.
Chargers, Denver, maybe, a few other teams can say there's this many injuries. So, we've had to adjust expectations a bit. The 49ers are, last place in a division technically, 3-3
and in last place,
and we're 2-4 in first place. Go fucking figure, right?
Son of a bitch,
go figure. But it just, as far as the 49ers, I really feel though that injuries are the biggest key. You just have a feeling like this team would be better by a game or two had they not been bit by the injury bug. I'm not so sure I could say that for the Cowboys because a lot of their problems, it has been a lot of injuries. Don't get me wrong, but on top of that, it's just a lot of sloppy play.
So let's talk about the Cowboys. I think they would have rounded into form if they were healthy. I think it would have took some time, but I do believe they would have rounded. I still would have thought if this team was the way it was speaking, I think they would have won the division and, would have been part of that group of upper echelon teams. But at the same time, man, you're right. I wonder about the coaching. I wonder about, did Mike McCarthy kind of just sweet talk Jerry Jones into giving him that job? Jerry Jones, he likes to find his boys, like Romo, he's like Garrett. There's certain guys that once he kind of feels good with, he wants to give them chances. And you wonder if he kind of sweet talked him and really didn't do all this stuff. McCarthy didn't do all this stuff he said he did, I mean, you've watched them. It's hard to see, granted, with the injuries, but even at the beginning, when they first started the season, when they were relatively healthy, I mean, what did you see from McCarthy?
Yeah, I mean, with McCarthy, it's really hard to judge. It's 2020, so, we don't have access. I didn't have access to training camp.
Yeah.
Which I normally do. You don't even get the beat writers that are giving reports on how people looked in practice. So we are going entirely on the word of Mike McCarthy. So to answer your question, I can only go off the word of what McCarthy says. And McCarthy, going into this Arizona game, said this was the best week of practice in preparation for the Dallas Cowboys. So where the fuck was it? That tells me if he's responsible for having or at least feeling the pulse of this team, he's reading that pulse wrong.
Yeah.
Because I can only go off of what he says because we don't have any beat writers and nobody's watching practice.
Yeah.
So I just feel like, I feel like he really hasn't learned this team yet.
No. And you wonder because, and I was always kind of struck by this, is McCarthy's style of offense feels so different than Kellen Moore's.
Right.
Kellen Moore to start the season was under center, fullback, play action, from 2019. Whereas McCarthy is a lot of shotgun, zone read, slant flats. I mean, getting the ball behind, not even behind the 10-yard line, but behind the line of scrimmage. A lot of with Shanahan and McVay, where you get the ball to them quickly. Whereas you look at not Linehan, Kellen Moore, it was a lot of play action, a lot of rollouts, and those are two very different offenses. So when I would look at it just from my point of view on the outside, it's how is that going to really work? Because I think you're just, it's oil and water. you know?
Yeah, I think so.
And you know, the defense is its own mess. And you wonder, like, McCarthy got his shot because of Mike Nolan in San Francisco.
Right.
So kind of it's so funny how they kind of come full circle.
They're
these
buddies.
two teams. Yeah, so it's like, you know, I hooked you up on the offense. I'm kind of the reason why you got your shot in Green Bay and you got to have Aaron Rodgers. You know, so he brings them over. Another issue I thought for Dallas, look, you know, this is where I thought the biggest issue was. You were transitioning to a 3-4. Anybody can say, oh, they were going to do. No. They were transitioning personnel to a 3-4. And the Cowboys did this with Bill Parcells. But in that draft, they made sure they went on and got pieces for him.
For 3-4.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they got Ratliff.
They actually played 4-3 his first year.
Yeah.
Parcells. Yeah. Because he said, I don't have the pieces to run what I like to run.
Yeah.
But they just came in here like, no, this is what we're going to run.
Yeah. And that's what kind of got me a little bit. I still think they're talented, but you know, the one thing I would say just as an outsider was like, Jerry Jones, man, I can see it. So if I can see it as someone who's not even a Cowboys fan, I don't know how the owner can't see it. When you've won divisions and conferences and Super Bowls dating back to the 90s, it's with a running game and a defense. And this 3 wide receiver, you know, high offense, I think it just doesn't work. The Kansas City Chiefs don't even do it like that. You know,
they
you
just beat the Bills based on the running game.
The running game.
The 49ers made the Super Bowl based on their running game, largely.
Just power eye, we're going to run it down your throat. And I think that when you look at what's going to happen with the Dallas Cowboys, and I mean, I don't think they'll be as bad as they were against Arizona. I think that was just like they didn't know what they were walking into because they just didn't know what it looked like yet. So I think they'll get better. But I still say, yeah, I mean, without Dak and if this offensive line is the way it is, I mean, you kind of have to look at like 6-10. And then if that, what do you do to rebuild this team?
Look, you hear about Jane Slater reported on NFL Network earlier today that the leaks are coming out that a lot of these players, or at least a few of these players, I should say, are not buying into the coaching staff. And I'm very interested to know, who are these players? I'm very interested to know. You'll hear a lot of people that cover the Cowboys saying maybe these are Garrett guys that are spoiled and don't want to work hard, don't want to change, don't want to learn the new system. Mm-hmm. And that's entirely possible. The truth is, let's just be out front about it. Nobody knows because none of us are in that locker room. Yeah. None of us are in those meetings. But I would say this, depending on who and where this is coming from determines the amount of legitimacy for me. Because I think if you're on the defensive side of the ball and you're struggling, I think you were forced to play a style of defense that not only are you not comfortable or even capable of playing, it doesn't fit your strong suit.
Yeah.
You know, to just force feed a defense, and you see that, let's face it, who's looked good on the Cowboys defense this year?
I think Aldon Smith is like one that's going
and he's brand new and he hasn't played in 5. But my point being is that for the majority of this class is failing. At a certain point, doesn't the teacher have to take accountability if so many students are failing?
Yeah.
It's not 1 or 2.
But then you wonder, like, did you bring in a French teacher to teach Spanish?
That's what I think is the problem. Yeah. And that's on McCarthy's. You know, people like to give, people, like I said, they really just said anybody but Garrett.
Yeah.
And you got somebody different. And you're seeing that, like I always said, I always thought Garrett was actually a very good coach. A very good coach. But listen, like I said, from Monday to Saturday, I just did not like his game management. I think his game management was terrible.
Yeah.
But I really felt like, hey, he was a guy that could get the job done day to day around there. And I think we're seeing now that maybe this coaching staff's got a few problems, man. I don't know how legit, but
yeah. And you look at like what they want to do moving forward. You wonder who's going to be on the Dallas Cowboys moving forward. I mean, we have the Dak injury, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think the Dallas Cowboys will, but if they ended up by some hook or crook way of ending up with the number 1 pick, and you've got Trevor Lawrence, I mean, I don't think you re-sign Dak. I think you have to, because you're going to get a quarterback who it's almost like, and I don't think Dak is Peyton Manning, but almost like the Manning luck thing, where it's like you have this prospect that's going to be in time better. You project him to be better than Dak, and you're going to have him at a cheaper contract, and you're going to be able to take the money you would have 40-something million you would have gave Dak and rebuild your defense and your offensive line. And you have a quarterback who, I mean, the way we talk about Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he's in the Andrew Luck book. You know,
Yeah.
And Andrew Luck is a great quarterback who just was hurt. He
Right.
just got hurt.
I mean, they never protected him.
No. So if you have a chance at him, you know, you have to take that chance. I mean, I think that would be the way you would go, especially because, and I'm sorry to say it, I just don't know if Jerry Jones ever truly believed in Dak. You know, I mean, there was always that, like...
After this Monday night, I think he believes a little more in Dak now.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
Dak, yes. I think you see that as great as it is, you know. I mean, plus, that offensive line is complete.
It's nowhere near what it used to be. 2019, you had Tyron Smith, Connor Williams, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, and La'el Collins. Now you have, going from left to right, we have Brandon Knight, Connor Williams, Biotish, Connor McGovern. Look, I can barely name these guys now. And Terrence Steele.
Yeah, and I think I heard one of your tackles got hurt still.
Yeah, Knight.
Knight got hurt.
Yeah. So we're going to have the backup to the backup.
Yeah, and it's 49ers fan. This is the first time in my lifetime I actually was watching that game, and I felt bad for Dallas. I was like, God, can he score at least something? It was already like 28, and I was like, just give him something.
Give him some hope.
Yeah, because it was. Plus, I wanted the Cardinals to lose. It'd be nice to have you guys beat some of our division, but you know, at the end of the day, when I look at Dallas, I just think that Dallas, they're at a weird crossroad because a rebuild isn't out of the question. And you know what? With that division being so bad, a rebuild doesn't even mean you're out of the race to win that division if you're in the middle of a rebuild. But you have to look at, we have to figure out how we're going to fix that defense, what we're going to do with our offensive line, because who knows if Tyron Smith's coming back.
Yeah.
If he can stay healthy, at that point you literally have two pieces. They're great pieces in La'el Collins and Martin, but you know you have to rebuild your offensive line. Zeke's got to get out of his own head, you know, and you may have to trade some of these high-priced pieces that you used to get some draft picks to really rebuild that team. Because, like I said, you're built through the running game. Every time we've watched it, it's when you know you had Romo and you had Dez. But you also had DeMarco Murray, who was running for like 1,600 yards.
Yeah.
You know, and you used Romo almost like he was the closer. You know?
Right.
The running game is what established dominance. Right. And then Romo would make a couple plays in the drive, a couple plays at the end of the game that would just shut them out.
I will underline the essay that you just wrote about the Dallas Cowboys, and let me give you what the thesis statement should be or what the title should be. And that's that the Cowboys under Mike McCarthy have lost their identity. That's the biggest difference from, going into 2020. Who are these Cowboys? What are they? Yeah. Who's good? What do they do good? What does the offense run through? Yeah. How is the defense a 4-3 or a 3-4? Is DeMarcus Lawrence even good anymore? I mean, so many. There's no identity anymore. Where at least before, call Garrett what you want or whatever, but we were a running team, play action, out of the eye, take the ball under center, and our defense was. Basically, we try to play a bend but don't break, even though we broke a little more than we should have. Yeah. But we knew that's what we were trying to be.
Yeah.
And our D-line could get pressure from time to time, have good games. Now.
Yeah, across the board, Dallas is going to be interesting to see what they do. But, 2020, it's just killing everybody. And, when I look at the Niners, the hopes, and then it almost felt like that first game against Arizona was a gut punch. It was like, all the hope and the offseason kind of just came crashing down, like reality hit this team. And everybody should know, you don't just get back to the Super Bowl. You start from the ground. And I think that when you come in and everybody's a little banged up, you still had, Deebo Samuel coming back from injury. He's on IR. And then you go into that game against Arizona. And that Arizona game it reminded me of the Atlanta game where it's like, it was there to win. It was right there to win, but Garoppolo came up short. And, everyone starts questioning Garoppolo, and he will be the talking point for the 49ers the rest of the way.
Is that fair, though?
No, but it's the nature of the beast.
Okay.
I think that when I look at Garoppolo, of course I want to see him make more throws, but to act like, and this is what I got mad at, is because he had a game against the Rams where he threw for 280 yards or 290 yards, threw for 3 touchdowns, I believe, no interceptions. And then I read in the morning about a new stat called air yards. And I'm just like, okay, Air yards are yards that he threw in the air, not yards counted out after the receiver catches the ball. And I think he threw for like 46 or 60 something, really low. But I'm like, okay, he still made the plays.
Right.
On fourth down, he threw that pass to Kittle. That wasn't a great grab by Kittle. That was a fine laser shot to Kittle that Kittle was able to catch in stride, break the tackle, and roll in for a touchdown.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't care what Jimmy does. I don't care if he throws for 1 air yard and 300 fine yards. Does he make the plays to win the game? Because at the end of the day, that's all you should ever care about. I don't care about these statistics or all this other stuff. Should they be used? Is there a place for them? Yes. But when they are used to kind of deter or to be negative, like, no. He had a great game. He really did. He was able to find players in rhythm. He found Kittle in rhythm all over the place. Debo, Ayuk, And so when I look at Garoppolo, I still see a guy maturing. I still see a guy kind of coming into his own. That's not going to ever be excused for a poor play because he played bad against that loss in Arizona was on him. Because like I said, he could have 300 yards but he had chances to make plays to win the game, and he fell short.
Right.
So that's where I judge him. I'm not going to judge on yards and all that. Were the plays there, and did you make the plays that need to be made to win the game? That, to me, is how I'm going to judge Garoppolo. And, you're looking at kind of Shanahan, and he's kind of feeling some adversity. I think that feeling of, like you said, and you're right, you're not just another team.
Yeah.
You came in as the team.
Right.
And then you go, and then those aren't real teams in New York.
No.
The 2 wins we got over there, those aren't real teams. But the loss of Bosa just is gut-wrenching. But what I give Kyle Shanahan credit is, and the team spoke about it after that loss when they lost Bosa, was they didn't know what they were going to do. They were down and out. And he gave them the confidence. And, like, our scheme and our style is going to win still. And that's what you want sometimes from a coach. A coach can give you X's and O's, but sometimes a coach needs to say, it's fine. Yes, we lost Nick Bosa. He's an amazing player. This is a team.
Right.
We're still going to win. And that worked against the New York teams. And then came just, the Eagles where it's one play. It's literally, Carson Wentz made a play and Nick Foles didn't. And that's the name of the game.
Yeah, it is.
Foles threw a touchdown. Mullins threw a pick six. I think it was a pick six. And that's the game. That was the game. I think we texted a little bit about it. I was like, if Garoppolo was there, I don't think they lose that game. It was so close. I don't think Garoppolo makes the mistakes. Mullins is not as good as Garoppolo, and that's why. The better quarterback would have been in there. And like you said, these injuries, and then no defense. The way you feel about your offensive line is the way I feel about my defensive backs.
Yeah.
We had nobody.
Yeah.
And this is where that loss to Miami is squarely on the head of Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan cost us that game.
Yeah.
Against Miami. You're an offensive guru. You're a mastermind. If you went up against a practice squad player, what would you do?
Right.
You would target him left and right. You never told your defensive coordinator during the week of preparation, if he gets burned, give him help.
Yeah.
And that was the game. You saw the game. It was literally just throw. Oh, you're lining him up on the other side?
Right. Throw that way. Yeah.
Throw that way. Oh, he's in the middle. Throw there.
Right.
He's on the stands. Throw there.
Right.
Because it was, and you kind of realize sometimes this coaching staff still has a way to go and they're still learning. I think what this season has taken away from me is that you can't judge everything game to game. You
can't. That's unfair. And as fans, I think we have a tendency to do that way, way too much in the social media areas. Place that we live in now, dude. It's really unfair to these coaches.
Yeah.
And players.
Yeah. One game, he's trash.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, I've seen throughout the beginning of the season where 1 week the 49ers want to bench him and they say put Mullins in. Yeah. And then Mullins plays good and it's like, see, I told you so. Yeah. And then he plays bad and it's like, where's Jimmy?
Yeah.
And then Jimmy comes back and it's like, this guy's complete garbage. Let's go to, Beathard.
Beat hard.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden Jimmy's the man again. It's just, wow, look at how many narratives I gave you, and that was just the last 5 weeks of the San Francisco 49ers.
3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah,
it was the Philly game, the Miami game, and then now he's the man again. And, you got to go with what you got, you know, and Garoppolo's the guy that we got.
He's the best you got. No matter how much you want to argue about it, he's the best quarterback on your roster.
And I look at it like people want to replace him. I go with who? My question is with who?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be in a position to draft Trevor Lawrence. The other two quarterbacks are question marks. I don't know too much about, or I don't believe too much about Trey Lance and the kid from Ohio State. I forget his name. It's escaping me right now. To get rid of Garoppolo. You're not going to be in a position to even draft those guys, I don't believe. You're going to go get Cousins?
Not right now.
You're going to go get Cousins?
Not a smart move.
No. Stafford I'd be open to, but they're like, oh, we're going to get Aaron Rodgers. Green Bay's not going to get rid of Aaron Rodgers.
Right, exactly.
They're not. Oh, he's going to... No, he's not. Look at how he's playing. They're going to give him at least another year and keep Love on the bench. You know, so, you know, he's what we have. I still have faith in him. You know, I want to see a season, just a season. That's fine. You know, if he comes out and he's not as good, okay, we have to start looking at how to replace him. But replacing him just off a bad game isn't going to solve it. The thought that do whatever you can to get to the Super Bowl this year, I don't think is worth it because you would have to lose draft picks. We're already not going to have a third because of Trent Williams. Let's just, you know what, it's 2020. My point of view is, hey, man, I didn't think I was going to get football at one point.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm just going to sit back and watch it and go from there and just keep an open mind. They're going to win some games. They're going to lose some games. You know, but I want to see Jimmy grow. I love our offensive weapons. I love Ayuk. I love Deebo Samuel. You know, I think those guys can grow in a really great combo receivers. You have Kittle, Mostert when he gets back. Their offensive line is kind of tattered, but it's good enough. You know,
I saw the tackles really struggled a couple of weeks ago.
Philly, that's where they just destroyed. I mean, Trent Williams got.
Yeah.
And I think when I watched a few plays, you realize he doesn't know the checks. Yeah. So if they're all supposed to slant and he's supposed to block, let's say, the defensive tackle, he doesn't know that. The guard blocks one tackle. I mean, the guard blocks maybe the wrong guy. He blocks somebody else, and boom, he didn't get that call.
Yeah.
So I think some of it is
working his way back in.
Learning the protections, getting back into it. And then some of it's Shanahan. And Shanahan still has a ways to grow as an OC. He's dealing with the expectations of success.
Yeah, right. And that's hard.
And how do you call a game? Because I think he's called sometimes I think Shanahan is afraid because he doesn't at times believe this team can how do I say it? He calls it to get a certain amount of yards. And in doing so, shortens the field. Okay, this play's going to give me 6 yards. This play's going to give me 3 yards, and then I can run and get a yard. Or this play's going to give me 4 yards. He has it. It's like a train. He's on the thing.
He has to stay on schedule.
Yeah. So, but that doesn't allow for big shots because big shots more times than not result in like incomplete passes. So now you're behind the sticks.
Yeah.
So that throws him off. And I think that he has to learn that, and my view of this is always going to be, you need to trust Jimmy to throw deep. Like we talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
Sometimes even an incompletion, it still has value.
Right.
You either need to trust Jimmy to throw deep, or you need to find a quarterback that you do, not named Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Just not Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Find me somebody. You can tell me this guy, Joe Blow from fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
But I trust him to throw deep, and I'm going to have him throw deep. Just not Kirk Cousins.
You get Jay Cutler out of
I'll
retirement?
take Jay Cutler and not Kirk Cousins. Because Jay Cutler will throw like a 45-yard interception. Kirk Cousins will throw like a 3-yard interception.
Yeah.
Like it was right there.
Right.
What were you doing?
I mean, so just like looking at this thing, taking a step back now, knowing what we know this far into the season, what are your recalibrated expectations for the 49ers? I mean, hopefully but realistically.
Realistically, I still think they can. They have a really hard schedule. Two things about the Niners under the Kyle Shanahan era. A, they get better as the year goes on. B, they do have a tougher schedule the second half. I mean, we have New England, at Seattle, home to Green Bay, and I forget what the third one is. I think it's another Seattle. No, Seattle plays at the end of the year. There's another game in there that I think the Saints, one of the two.
Yeah.
You still have to play the Saints. But when I look at that, will tell me right away, okay, that game against New England and the game against the Seattle Seahawks will tell me where this team is. I still think this team is a playoff team. Do I think it's a division winner? I don't know. I can't say that with certainty the way I did at the beginning of the year because of the losses. You can't afford to lose games that you should have won against Philly and against the Dolphins.
Right.
Those should be wins. Division losses beginning of the season, they are what they are. But those are 2 losses that could be the difference between being in first place and being a wild card. And so I still think they'll be able to make the wild card only because I know only one team's coming out of the East.
Yeah.
I don't think much of anybody. The Bears you have the Bears, and you have Green Bay, you have Tampa Bay, and you have New Orleans.
Yeah.
And then it's the battle for that new wild card spot, and it's going to come down to, the Rams, whoever doesn't win the West.
Yeah.
You know. So I still think we are a wild card team. I still think we'll make the playoffs. It just depends on who gets healthy when.
Yeah. Just to recalibrate expectations for the Cowboys then. I went into the season saying they'd be about 10-6. That was before injuries. That was before seeing how sloppy they're playing. I did say that even with the struggles, that if our tackles got healthy late in the season, we'd still be a solid 8-8. Mm-hmm. Well, that didn't. No. We fell short of that too.
Went the other way.
And Tyron Smith are out for the season. So now, recalibrating, I'm looking at a solid 6-10 right now. I think it's going to be a struggle. The crazy, sad, freaking joke about it all is that may just be good enough to win the NFC East in 2020.
Yeah, they may be a 3-way tie.